Bring me out, Stephen. Whatever
Okay.
whatever I can do with you guys. I loved it there. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that's usually what we hear. People are pleasantly surprised by how nice Indy is.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get them to have AFP International here. We can support big conferences. That would be really nice for that to be here. No
I
travel
don't
at all.
understand why that hasn't happened, but
I know.
do have a thought on that, which I won't share online, but I will share offline for your
Okay.
information.
Well, looks like we got about a minute, so thanks to everyone who's joined early. Actually, my clock just hit 2 o'clock, so Susan, why don't we get started?
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone, if you're on the East Coast, and good morning if you are on the West Coast or somewhere in between. Thanks for being here for today's webinar, Confident Fundraising for Nonprofit CEOs and EDs. And my name is Stephen Shattuck, and I'm going to be moderating today's little discussion. So thanks for being here. Just want to let everyone know that this presentation is being recorded. So if you have to leave early or if you wanted to review some of the content later, you'll be able to do that. Just look for an email from me a little later on this afternoon. I'll be sending out that recording, as well as Susan's slides. So look for an email from me. And as Susan's presenting today, I want to encourage everyone to send in questions and comments through that chat box right there on your screen. We'll both see those, and we're going to leave some time at the end for a little Q&A session, and Susan has a pretty fun activity planned as well. So don't be shy as you're listening in. Please do make use of that chat box, and we'll get to your questions towards the end. And just so everyone knows, just in case you're new to Bloomerang webinars, if maybe this is your first one or you're not sure what Bloomerang is, we're a donor database software company. We provide donor management software. So if you're interested in that at all, you can check out our website. We do offer a lot of educational resources in addition to these webinars and also the software. So if you're in need of software, check that out. Won't talk any more about Bloomerang from a commercial standpoint, but just wanted everyone to know. Thank you, Sandra. I also think Bloomerang is fantastic. So we'll end the little commercial there. And I want to introduce our guest, Susan Axelrod. Thanks for being here today. How's it going?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Stephen.
Oh, yes. I'm very excited. And Susan, I can't remember ever having as much fun planning a webinar as I have with you over the last few days. So, for those of you who don't know Susan, Susan is the managing partner and lead coach over at Confident Fundraising. And she brings to her teaching and training programs 30 years of fundraising experience, as well as an intuitive sense about working with people's philanthropic passions. And Susan was a practitioner during the first half of her career, and she's had a successful consulting practice of her own since 2001. And as a consultant, she is focused on helping organizations commit energy and passion to donor relationships, cherishing and nurturing them through personalized strategies and meaningful giving opportunities. And all those things she's going to talk about today. And she's also got a new iron in the fire that she's going to tell you about a little later on after her presentation. So Susan, this is really great to have you. Very excited. And I'm not going to take any more time away from you, so why don't you go ahead and get things kicked off for us.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, and hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us today. Stephen, thanks for the opportunity to connect with the Bloomerang universe. You know how much I love it. And I really just want to say you have done an outstanding job developing a useful resource base on the website. I really love the quick TV blog spots or whatever you call them, and I want to encourage everyone to listen to all of them. It's just a wealth of information. I do want to let people know that I'm going to make a special offer at the end of this webinar to celebrate the launch today of my new business, Confident Fundraising. Starting it with a partner, the great and talented Marcy Stengel, and I really feel that this subject is important and going to help you. I'm not going to sell, I promise. I'm just going to make a special offer to thank you for calling in. Today's program is about top of the pyramid fundraising, not about all the other methods of raising money. I want to bring everyone to that same space right now and about personal, individual, highest level solicitation. Frankly, the kind most people dread, but I'm going to help you get to a much better place around that even today. I also want to talk for a second about why we're focusing our efforts on CEOs and executive directors. We're sort of generically calling them nonprofit leaders, and as between CEO or ED, I'm using them interchangeably for our purposes today. I believe that the best fundraising, the most successful work in fundraising, starts at the top with the decision maker. I have seen over decades of working with nonprofits frustration by the executive leaders that development staff, quote, aren't getting it done, and by development staff that the decision maker is, quote, not getting it. Between the board and the executive, there are many people who are not comfortable with asking for money. And then they hire a development professional, and then they breathe a sigh of relief and say, thank goodness that person can do it now. Then they set goals based on what they need from the budget, not based on a study of previous giving history, relationship, prospect strategies. And then they evaluate the development professional on whether or not they meet those dollar goals. This is what I call hamster wheel fundraising. It's like a hamster wheel racing around the annual fundraising plan that only marginally meets the crying need of the organization. There's a need for a plan for every organization, of course, but the planning is usually not well done. It's not based in the reality of your actual donor base. And even if a development professional is brought in and has good experience, they're often not listened to by the decision maker because the decision maker is often too uncomfortable asking for money. And I want to be clear here, the partnership, the CEO or the executive director and the board member is where the big money lies. We know, if any of you guys know Jerry Panis, he has done the research and he talks about this. We know that respect for the nonprofit CEO is one of the top 3 reasons that large gifts are given. There's a trust, there's a feeling, there's a belief that the need is genuine and that the organization is well managed and that the money is used or would be used as it's meant to be used, and that all will be well financially. I have been the practitioner, and I know that pain point of knowing what needs to be done, but feeling frustrated that it can't get done because of even unintentional obstacles thrown up by the ED and or board members who just aren't comfortable asking for money. There is a need for a full, comprehensive development plan, but then will either sit on paper or a computer or somewhere not being used or really go nowhere if the decision maker does not begin to learn the difference between asking for money and offering best friends who care the most about the mission the opportunity to help significantly impact that mission. And all those phrases you'll be hearing again. Now, Stephen told me that I can watch what's going on in the chat box, so I'm going to say something. I may or may not be able to address it, but I feel like if I were addressing you guys personally, I would be seeing heads nodding up and down at some of these things that I'm talking about. In January, I'll be celebrating 30 years working dedicated in fundraising and to supporting nonprofits, like I said, either as a practitioner or a consultant in development. And by that, I mean developing relationships with people who care the most about your organization and want to impact mission. Over the last several years, and as I was thinking about this, I realized this has increased as my visibility has increased in my work. But honestly, a month has not gone by. And I want to say a week, but I can certainly for sure say a month has not gone by that I don't meet a nonprofit executive leader a development professional or a board member, someone who's a board member who tells me a story about their organization in a mode that I have coined limping and languishing. Everyone who knows me knows that I talk about the plethora of nonprofits that exist today that are limping and languishing. I had begun to develop a thesis, just sort of a personal opinion, that this prevalent condition is going to have a long-term negative impact in the entire nonprofit sector, which I believe is set up to protect the fabric of our society. And I sort of kept this to myself. Well, not really. Those who know me know I feel this, but I didn't make a public pronouncement about this, but it's been on my mind, and it's really, really been a concern for me. This past August, I had the opportunity to have a long, personal, detailed conversation with someone I consider a legend in the field of philanthropy. Although she's young, so I'm sure she wouldn't appreciate being called a legend. She wrote the book Inspired Philanthropy. Her name is Tracy Gary. She has committed her incredible career to helping nonprofits be better and do better in their management and fundraising. By the way, she has also been a spectacularly generous philanthropist to those organizations on her priority giving list. I don't know if she or I brought it up first. I sort of can't remember, but there was like this energy buzz in the air around us at this single table in a restaurant in Colorado as we went towards each other and discussed what we see as the crisis that is facing our nonprofit organizations and how we will be seeing many closures of important organizations over the next few decades. Now, if you're on this call and you're thinking, oh, that's not us, we could never close down, I want to remind you of a small company called Bear Stearns or any other related example. But I hope you're right. I hope you'll never close down, and I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. If you're on this call because you are or have a nonprofit leader, I don't know if they're how many actual CEOs or development professionals are on the call. But if you have a decision maker who is looking for more confidence in the area of high-level personal solicitation, I want to ask you to clear your mind of everything else that's going on in it right now and really come to attention. I know this is a weird thing to say, but I have attended lots of webinars and weekly conference calls and whatever, where I have someone kind of talking in the background while I'm really working at my desk and really only half paying attention while I'm focusing on something else. So if anything that I said earlier sort of resonates with you, then I just wanted to suggest that you really bring this conversation today to the front of your mind. And in the end, together, we can make better mission impact, which is really what this is all about. I just want to elaborate on the future of our sector for just a few minutes, not even a few minutes. If your organization has a budget under $1 million, if you think about how you're going to protect women from violence, how you're going on the street, how you're going to offer your reading programs to children who are living on an urban battleground, whatever your arena is, I urge you to have a thoughtful, strategic conversation with your users. And I say that because they may or may not be your board, about your real, true future. Not your personal future with the organization. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your organization's future. Honestly, folks, I fear for you. For your health, really being on a treadmill running is good. Being on a hamster wheel running is bad. On the treadmill, not that I really know from firsthand experience, but I'm told you can control the speed, you can control the distance, you can, like run up a hill, run down a hill. On a hamster wheel, you're running out of control aimlessly in circles. Again, I feel like maybe if I were doing this in public, that somebody might be nodding their head and saying, yes, she's right. Most ran a serious, committed, achievable growth plan for sustainability you guys, I want to encourage you to consider looking around your community or the world even for an organization that offers similar or compatible services where you can come together in greater strength, leaving behind ego, possession, and ownership to really be a thriving and sustainable organization and leave the world of limping and languishing. Now, if your budget is between $1 million and $5 million, I'm sure there's many of you in worry. You have a little bit more buffer, a little bit more breathing space. It's important to figure out which direction the wind is blowing for you. Do you have the wind at your back with the lighthouse beacon at the front and a straight rub, smooth sailing ahead? I don't know if any of you guys are sailors, you are. That will lead you into thriving and sustainable operations? That's really the question, or is the beacon missing? And do you have a kind of deep, personal, quiet concern about your future? This is the real stuff, folks. This is like the real stuff, right into your heart. For an organization that's fully structured with staffing facilities, and between 1 and 5, you very well might be, consumer support, whatever that looks like for you, but you still don't have a strong, full individual giving program, you're still relying large grants, then I'm bumping you back to the first category. Look around to see if there are others with whom you can combine for greater strength. Now, if your organization is over $5 million and you have dedicated staffing for fundraising and you're open and willing to fully partner and participate in offering great giving opportunities, then you do have a shot at a sustainable, long future. Today I'm kind of beyond the naivete I had when I was a practitioner for a really, really great social service organization 20-some years ago, where I used to say, quote, "We want to put ourselves out of business." They served people living in poverty, people with disabilities, and other constituencies, and that's what I used to say. We want to put ourselves out of business. Support us and help us put ourselves out of business. And then they started serving people living with HIV and AIDS, and they started growing their endowment for a long future of helping those in need. Because honestly, the future that we can see and feel in our lifetime and even beyond are so severe, so prolific, that it's unlikely that these organizations that do have good operations and good management will ever go out of business. Of course, they'll continue to morph and grow or merge or take over other organizations that are failing, as that organization that I used to work for has done over the decades. This all leads me to my first learning objective of today. It is vital. It is fundamental. It is the foundation of your top of pyramid efforts for you to dig and unleash your energy and passion for your own mission, your own organization, the work that you're doing. Now, is this realistic? I mean, I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I really know how difficult the life of a nonprofit executive is, and it just may be too hard to find the energy. What I do know is, unless or until you have your own deep-seated personal passion for your own mission, that you can emotionally, eloquently, passionately, persuasively communicate to people who care the most, and those, I mean the people who have or can gather resources, then I'm not sure if you can move into the category of a thriving and sustainable future. So regarding unleashing your own energy, your own passion for the mission, let's assume that you're in the right place, that you do feel that energy and passion for your own mission, but that you're on your own hamster wheel, in your daily work life. You're in your own grind of daily activity that has sort of pushed aside the passion, the anxiety of, getting it all done and finding the financing and doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing. It sort of made you forget what it is that's really vitally important here. I mean, really, I know what that life is like. And by the way, I'm not talking about on the personal side. That's a whole other conversation that you have to address. I'm really only talking about the work side. Dig deep and remind yourself of the deep-seated personal commitment to your outcomes, to your mission, and communicate that with the people who care. Things are going to be different. They're going to feel different. Now, at this time, I feel that it's important to say that if you're the actual CEO on this call, really only know about financial reality and the full, or from the organization, and the full intricate workings that are difficult and perhaps hard to overcome. If there are infrastructural issues, before you can start offering really great giving opportunities to people that you can feel good about, then I encourage you, those issues have to be taken care of. Get your organization's actual smooth working order and then come back to this work. Why? Because you're going to be asking people to make a charitable investment in you. And you want to be respectful of their money and responsible to their investment. Now, if you have people who really care the most, like you have good strategic partners who have resources, and you can ask them to work with you, to partner, become thinking partners with you on some of these struggles and help you get through to the other side in strength, then I definitely encourage you to do that. I know that you guys know that people who are more involved, people who are trusted insiders, especially if you find the ones who have or have access to resources, they're going to grow with you as donors. Now, let's get to the second learning objective. Understanding the importance of who cares. And you've heard me say this several times now. Most organizations look around at names on buildings or names on other donor lists and say, oh, we should go after them. Now, again, out there in my audience, I know you're thinking of how many times some board member has either walked in or mailed you a program from the last concert they attended, or some gala, and said, oh, look at the list, we should go after those people. I want to encourage you to stop that madness. Rather, during a session with your trusted advisors and board, and ask yourselves, who cares the most about our greatest success? Now, of course, obviously, consumers care the most, and I realize that many of the consumers don't have resources to support you if you're in those kinds of, arenas. But really, there's lots of other people who care the most about your greatest success. And I do this as a training session. I have a big training session I do called Who Cares? And when you begin to get into, you begin to make lists of groups and individuals, and you're going to find them. And go to all the constituencies and ask this single and simple question. And you will find what you should be connecting with to get on the path to more money for your organization. When you connect with the people who care the most, they, care the most. That's the exact point. They care. They care about your success. And by definition, they will want to hear your story, share your story, support your story of the mission of your organization. That is it. If you're feeling on that hamster wheel, that you have to do it all, or you and one other person have to do it all, or nobody else really gets this, I promise you it's not true. There are people who care the most, who love your mission. As long as you're a good, well-run, financially, stable organization, they're out there and they'll help you. Now listen up. Your goal with these people is to develop lifelong relationships where they make long-term commitments which grow larger over time. They do not have to be the wealthiest people to become your best donors. One of the things I teach in the other world where I teach philanthropy is the benefit of long-term giving. Maybe you can give $1,000 this year, $83.33 a month on your credit card. But what if, because we found an organization about which you care the most, what if you commit your life to that? Why not? The process that I do in my other work about finding something you care deeply about, then not that you can't change it in the future, you could, but now we're into a whole different ballgame. Now we have multi-year pledges, nice multi-year pledges that really do add up over time. Also, I want to suggest that you take the Introduction to Bloomerang webinar. I noticed on their website there is one this month, to be reminded of the value of donor retention, which, you know, and they don't pay me to say this, as I'm sure you guys know, but I really do believe the value of this software product is significant in its basis in donor retention. There's also a great downloadable on the subject on the Bloomerang resource page, which I myself downloaded last night. Now, I do love large gifts. Of course I love the largest gifts. Of course I do. And I promise you, those will come as you find people who care and create lifelong loyal donor relationships. So for example, for one of my clients, there was this elderly volunteer, and she was involved with them for so many years, and everyone knew she didn't have any money. Like, everybody knew that. But my work with them was in planned giving, and I had a conversation with her, and she told me she was leaving her entire estate to that organization. And that was wonderful. She wanted to remain anonymous, but even still, I frankly thought, well, how much is that going to be? Well, guess what? It ended up being $87,000. And that's not nothing to a lot of organizations. Why? Because her son and husband had predeceased. The attorneys did take a lot of the estate, but the sale of the house generated that very nice gift that came after she was gone. Now, I want to talk for a moment about why individual giving. To do this, fortunately, I didn't have to do any research or even a single thing except track one statistic annually that another really big organization is paying for. I hope you're familiar with Giving USA. It's givingusareports.org. I am one of those geeks who waits eagerly for pie charts to be announced every year. For 50 years, we have seen consistently the largest slice of the income pie. The largest slice is coming not from foundation grants, not from government agencies, not from corporations, but from people, either living or dead. Sometime over the year, they started adding in bequests, but only people leave bequests. So at this time in history, 80% of every philanthropic dollar given, 80 cents of every dollar given comes from individuals. So when I used to do fundraising consulting, which I don't really do anymore, but when I did, I always wanted to see that the percentages of work were equal to tracked, statistically shown Giving USA pie slices that basically show you where to focus your efforts. That's how part of the way that I came to sort of where I am today. Now, as an aside, if you guys are still out there, it's a little weird standing here. My chat has cleared. I'm hoping you can still hear me. Then I hope you're asking yourself, maybe people are typing. I'm sure you're saying that you can hear me. Good, thanks you guys. I'm hoping that you will be asking yourselves now, what do I have to do to move into better, more productive individual solicitation? This is where we get into the last two learning objectives. The third learning objective is realizing that it's not about the money. Heartfelt purpose yields lucrative and meaningful returns. Now, I know this is in a fortune cookie, and I know I'm not supposed to use, multisyllabic words, but believe me, offering potential donors a heartfelt, purposeful connection to making your mission happen, that's the magic. And the way to make the magic is by number 4, which is to share your story. How is it that you make purposeful, meaningful connections with the people who care the most? You do this by sharing your real story, okay? Face your own reality. And again, I really want to say thank you for calling in and thank you for taking the time, because people, I'm kind of real about this. I kind of face the hard stuff sometimes, with you guys. So when I say face your own reality, ask yourselves, who are we? How are we doing? Are we limiting and languishing? If so, how do we strengthen ourselves to become a thriving and sustainable organization? Are we a thriving and sustainable organization? If so, how do we move from depending on grants and events? I see those heads nodding again. How do we move from individuals who care the most? Are we a large operation with a long history, but an old board, a long-time executive who is tired, and by that I don't mean to offend anyone, and a rotating door in the development office function, and again, I don't mean to offend, work of facing your own reality, of making deep personal connections and sharing your story is really where the rubber meets the road. And it results in the most fun thing ever. When a donor has made the largest gift they can make, and that could be $500 for them, and it could be $500,000, it could be 7 figures. I don't know, where your organizations are. I don't want to say if you're looking for 6-figure gifts, and I don't want you to stop listening, if I talk about 6-figure gifts, and you'd be thrilled with 5,000. So you apply the number. This strategy works the same at all levels. So this is one of the most important things I want to say today. So I don't know if you've been writing anything. This is the time where you pick up a Post-it note, put the pen, and stick it on your bulletin board. Fundraising is not about the money. It's about the relationship. It's not about the money. It's about the relationship. Think of your own best donors, the ones you can go to when there is a real need, something unexpected, the boiler goes, or whatever. They are in it with you. They want to know what's going on. They want to be the first offered an opportunity to help you grow or strengthen. Some might even be asking you, what more can I do? How can I help? And I hope some of you are thinking of those people in your head right now. This is like a revelation for me when I moved out of the practitioner world into the consulting world, which gave me like space and, ability to breathe away from the hamster wheel. That is now what I teach. When you're in the practitioner world as the CEO or the developmental professional, like everything is like money, money, money. Got to send out the letter, got to have the event, got to ask for the gifts, etc. What I want you to understand is if you find people who care the most and create a purposeful connection and share your true, authentic story, people want to hear from you. They want to help you. They want to share the resources that they do have to support. Your mission. This is the picture that I want to put in your mind when you think about the top of the pyramid in fundraising. We're not talking about how many letters we should send out to people we don't know, or how many, more $100 tickets we can sell. And by the way, my whole other life of teaching philanthropy, I ask people, what will your legacy be? I teach them to figure out what matters deeply and commit to that, because I want to teach them to become lifelong loyal donors. not just engage in responsive or checkbook giving. Now, let me just take a second. We're the time. We're going to get to questions soon. What about the quid pro quo golf course giving? What about when you know, some of you may be thinking, well, we got that 6-figure gift or 5-figure gift because so-and-so board member, you know, got it from their peer. I'm happy for you. But I don't really care about that $1,000, $10,000, $100,000 gift because that's not what we're in this for. Unless you are doing the work of then the excellent stewardship work of stewarding that donor away from the quid pro quo relationship to a lifelong loyal donor with your organization, which you're probably not, but you may be, then that was just a one-time lucky thing that somebody, you know, one of your loving board members did for you. I hope you understand that difference. You want to do it so well that a donor thanks you for the opportunity to give you money. What's the it that you want to do so well? It's making deep, authentic, personal connections by sharing your mission and impact story. Example here, a real, true, honest example that just happened this. I have a client where I've been focusing on donor relations to help grow their endowment for a few years. I've been working with them. And the work with them has been completely out of their expectation. They were thinking they would have a campaign, you know, like an endowment campaign structured like a traditional capital campaign. And I said, oh, no, no, no. We're calling this an effort. It's ongoing. We're growing the endowment to sustain the strong future of this organization, and we're building relationships over decades. And I kept telling them, we have to share the story of why this organization is worthy. And all these people you, quote, expect to give you large gifts just because they have significant resources and they're longtime members or donors, that's just not going to happen unless you do it this way. So we had one person who was in that category, and I have to say, even now, the organization knows there was a little bit of a presumption around getting a large gift from this person. But in the end, everybody was like, oh, they should give, they should give. But in the end, it took a few years. Okay, so it's never on my timetable. I want it all now. But it's not my money. It's their money. So it has to be on their timetable. It has to feel right to them, and sometimes it has to be right from a tax perspective or whatever. In the end, at the event that we had to recognize a very large gift that they made, the donor thanked them for the opportunity to make this gift to connect to this organization that was so meaningful to them over multiple generations of family. Yes, I wrote that down. That was the exact quote. And I happened to be sitting next to one of the solicitor volunteers. I had been training on this. And she looked at me with this huge smile on her face. And I can't remember if she actually elbowed me, but it was like a mental elbow. And later she said to me, I cannot believe that happened, that he thanked us for the opportunity to make a gift like this, which has had such an impact on our endowment. It's just like you said, she told me. So that's the magic, and that's totally real. And I mean, I could tell numbers of stories like that. Now, that's not to say that there aren't tax strategies that could be taken advantage of. I always say if you're going to give, be as smart as you can about your giving, get tax advantages, you know, include your estate, care for your spouse and your heirs, all that stuff. Of course, I know that. But when it works, they thank you. Now, how does this happen? It happens with the formula that I use that I call the prospect strategy. I developed this formula from information that I learned 23 years ago. And over the decades of helping organizations build authentic relationships, I turned it in the information into a formula so that now I offer coaching clients who work with me. It has to do with really having a personal relationship with them. Okay? That's what it's all about. So what I want to do now, I'm sort of been trying to glance at the time. I really wanted to get plenty of time for this, is if anyone out there is in the soup of this, you have to try to figure out how to close a gift. You've got somebody in progress and you don't know what to do. Let's do it. I do want to, this is not planned. I did not plant anybody in the audience or anything like that. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I thought we would just give it a try. Or I want to now open up the floor for questions. And also, I really want to encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity now to get your questions answered. So, Stephen, how do we address questions? Okay, let's see. Somebody was brave enough to write in. I got to get to the top. I am the founder and ED of a one-year-old nonprofit serving people living with dementia. Bless you, woman. Or man, I don't know who you are. I'm the only staff person at this time, and even I am not pulling in a livable salary. But our programs are expanding. We have increasing numbers of partner organizations and care facilities. We're on the right track. Having said that, what would you advise to someone in my position? Oh, honey. Where we are just starting to develop a budget. I have been applying for grants, doing crowdsourcing events, etc., and they have been working on a small scale. Would appreciate your input. Okay, I think her name was Susan. I think it's the woman. Okay, Susan. First of all, really, this work that you're doing in our world is a wonderful, gift that you're offering. So I really want to honor you and thank you for doing this work. I strongly urge you and encourage you to have the conversation, have a 1 hour uninterrupted time where with your trusted advisors. Okay, I don't know if they're your board members, if you're a founder and you're a small organization. So I see this as case study all the time. I realize that maybe your friends or they've given all they can, whatever. I don't know what the shape of the board is in, but whomever your trusted advisors are, who care about the long-term sustainable future of this organization, I want you guys to close the door and clear your minds and have a conversation about who cares the most and why. Why, who are the people, the individuals. I guess you're a community, probably you're a community-based organization, not a national organization. For people living with dementia, so maybe you're actually doing direct care. So I want you to look inside the relationships that you've already made, and when you have a group of trusted advisors who are close to you, you can all look into your concentric circles of influence, as I call it, and figure out who really cares the most. Now, there's one thing about this case that I know that you know, and I want to say out loud and bring to your consciousness and certainly help everybody else understand. Every single person is going to get old. And everybody will not necessarily get dementia, but everybody's mind will be less sharp than it used to be. I mean, there's notable exceptions, but let's just say generally that's going to happen, even if it's not dementia. So I want to say that so that as you engage in this thinking circle with your trusted advisors about who cares most, that you remember that I call it the there but for the grace of go I strategy. There may be people in that category whom you can address. Also, I want to suggest that you figure out, and we could talk about this offline. You can feel free to call me. That you do something that I call cost per service unit, so that you're really figuring out what your costs, your real costs are. It says I'm not even pulling in a livable salary. And again, I meet these founders all the time. then starting to develop the budget. Get a real budget developed with a real line items with real salaries in place. And that's going to be the conversation when you develop the list of people who care the most, where you're really, reaching out to make personal connections. That's the real information. Here's our real need. For us to survive, we need to do this. Okay? And then I see somebody else has written in a question. The last thing I want to say to Susan and anybody else for whom this resonates is, why did you create an organization? Now, I realize that may be offensive, and I do not mean to offend. I must challenge you. I must challenge you. And I encourage you to call me. We can have that conversation offline. But with the scenario that you just painted, I really want to say, I put you in one of those categories earlier that I mentioned, that instead of doing this hamster wheel that you're already on and keep moving on, there are ways to make the mission happen, which I know is in your heart. And I know why you did this, like I can imagine. And so I want to encourage you to go in that route as well. Okay, so let me move on. Yes, Sandy, a recording of this will be available. Sam, what is the best way for an organization to maintain a meaningful long-term relationship with a potential donor as board directors come and go? What is the best way for an organization to maintain a meaningful? I think Sam is meaning that the potential donor. It means, well, I talked about the partnership of the board member and the executive director or the CEO as, really where the big money lies. So just because if people are on board with you, as board members, then we want you to be on their priority giving list. I know some of you are laughing when I say, of course, all board members should be supporting the organization with a meaningful financial commitment, but they should be. And if you have people on there who are on there for any other reasons, not that they have to be rich, it has to be a meaningful commitment to them according to their means. If you have people who are on there for any reasons they're not really connected, then that is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to go off and et cetera, et cetera. But if you have people who are rotating, who are actively involved, engaged in rotating through, 1 term, 2 term, maybe up to 3 term maximum, then you get them into, an advisory capacity, and they can still work, as an individual in partnership with the executive to continue to steward those donors. But I want to say, Sam, I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, but I do want to say that the cycle after you cultivate to, have the executive and the board member work together to, get these donors on board is that you would be stewarding donors, connecting them to the organization, connecting donors to the organization, the mission, so that it's not any one person who is the only connection to a donor. Because, by the way, executives can go as well, as you know. And that's why I talk about the overall long-term sustainable health of the organization. So, Sam, if I didn't hit that, my contact information is somewhere. Just please call me, and we'll talk about that. Margot, what steps would you recommend to engage each donor, each major gift prospect who attends a cultivation? Oh, this is a great question. Yay! Is there a type or format of cultivation event that's effective? Okay, Margot has hit on a real pet peeve of mine. I just said it to somebody last night after a meeting. So what happens is you can have this great event, and you think it's a success because you got X number of people there, whatever the goal was of how many people you wanted to attend. It wasn't a success if you don't engage the donor after the event, if it's, for the purpose of raising more money, okay? Now, special events that are fundraisers, blah, 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 that's a whole different ballgame. I'm, not really talking about that. But this says, a donor or a major gift prospect. Is there a type of format of cultivation event that's a yes? If I go back to Susan, I'm Margot, whatever your organization is, but if your organization has a purpose or a cause or mission, whatever the issue of what you do is of universal interest, like aging is, or clean waters, or, cleaning up our city or whatever, then I urge you to bring speakers, interesting, informative speakers, on the subject that is of broad interest and educate people. Okay, that's number one, about the subject matter, and then you can also do your little commercial about what you're doing about it. But that is something I strongly urge and recommend. And then the other thing is, depending on who the CEO is of your organization regarding is there a type of format of cultivation events that's effective, if it's a hospital and you got your hospital CEO, everybody doesn't get to meet the hospital CEO. So that's something, giving people the opportunity to rub elbows with people who matter in the community, that's something that they want to do, and you always want to keep mission front and center. So I'm going to move on. Margot, contact me if I didn't hit your points exactly. Is it a good idea to focus your fundraising strategies to the next generation of donors? Millennials who are relatively new in the workforce. Yes, 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 100 million times yes. So that question reminds me of one of the other things I wanted to say about your cultivation events or stewardship events. I always like to encourage events. Families are involved because people work more than they spend time with their family. So to have a gala or whatever, some event, I did say about the lecture series because we do want to feed people's brains, that's important. But other than that, I like to encourage, and I like to encourage love intergenerational events, Amanda, where you are bringing together like older people with younger people and promoting conversation. We could talk about that for hours. So yes, it is a good idea because if you're creating a long-term, sustainable, thriving organization, then your millennials today are your future major donors. Never mind the millennials who started rich in the tech world. Okay, fine. Paul, what would be a good strategy to get a reluctant CEO on board with fundraising? Well, I don't know who Paul is, and I didn't plant that question. But, Paul, that's what we're doing with our fundraising mastermind group. One of the reasons a CEO is reluctant is that personally they're afraid or uncomfortable or insecure about fundraising. But they tell you that because they're the CEO, because they're supposed to know. And also if they sold themselves on their ability to do this, but they know deep inside that they're not really good at it or comfortable with it, then they're gonna, be reluctant. And so this is, Paul, this is really personal. And all of you guys, this is really personal. And I'm telling you, this is really true. One of the reasons that, obstacles get thrown up and, this and that, there's reluctance, they don't listen, this and that, is because they really don't really fully get it. Now, of course, there is the reality of a busy life and a chaotic job. And, I get all of that. But we're starting a business based on this theory that if we can shore up the confidence in personally, quietly, with individual coaching, not in public, with our nonprofit CEOs, then they are become the best friends of the development professionals, and that's one of our goals. Okay, Cynthia, what's the most effective way to help board members understand their role in fundraising for the organization? Cynthia, the most effective way is to talk about it before they become board members. Well, Cynthia and everyone else. So, you're on a hamster wheel, and I know that. That's the board hamster wheel. So when I can't say what organization it is, but long ago, early in my career, I developed my reputation by coming on board an organization that had been around for a lot of years and had a whole board of people who didn't do anything. And one by one, I met with them personally. I was the director of development. I wasn't a consultant. I met with them personally, and the first thing I talked about was, what do you care about this organization? Why are you a board member? Tell me about your connection to the mission. And then I would hear stories about the mission and how important it was and this and that. And then I would say to them, are you willing and ready to, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm hoping that's not Stephen calling me, that we had a problem. Are you ready and willing to ask for money to support and protect the future of this vital organization? And because I was alone with them, the CEO was not alone, as the director of development, they said no, like 3/4 of them. And I looked at them in the eye, Cynthia, and I said to them, I hope you won't be personally offended, and I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but if we don't find people to join the board who are ready, willing, and able to ask others, for money, then this organization will not survive. And so, Cynthia, maybe you can't do that. Maybe I play that role as a consultant all the time, but that's the most effective way to help them, is to stop lecturing them in board meetings. You got to ask, but rather meet with them personally and give them the opportunity to say what they want to say. Those are the questions that I see, and I'm going to just take a minute now. Stephen, if that's okay.
Hey, Susan, I'm here. I accidentally hung up my phone instead of unmuting my phone, so I'm so embarrassed to leave you hanging there.
Oh, no problem.
I got butterfingers.
I clutched and shifted, no problem.
But I was sitting back and listening to your answers, so that was enjoyable.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, share them with Leah, by all means.
I will.
I do want to just take this time to let people know, as I've mentioned, already, that we are launching a first ever of its kind fundraising mastermind group. Now, a real mastermind is peer-to-peer, but this is going to be a facilitated mastermind. We're literally only opening up 6 spots, and it's going to, there's an application process, and I'm looking for people who want to be able to do this. And by the way, it's really going to be fun. And the this, I mean, is raise more money for your organization. And so what I'm going to do is offer anyone on this webinar a 10% discount. The pricing point on this is not inexpensive, but what I want you to know is that it's less than the cost of one major gift. And that's what I want to do. I want to encourage you to think about major gifts and how you can get them, and how, what results could be of, joining a mastermind group like this. The other thing I want to tell this large and, worthy audience is that there has to be, really a commitment to meeting. I'm debating right now weekly versus every other week. Probably going to go with every other week. I'll do that in conversation with the 6 people. And then the second thing that we're doing, as I mentioned to Stephen earlier, is a amplified training group, we're calling it, for people who are new to the CEO or executive director position. And that's going to be a 6-month training program. That's only going to be a monthly call with other personal opportunities for coaching. And that information you'll find on the website as well. So, Stephen, my laptop says 3 o'clock exactly.
Wow, good job. That was really good, Susan. I enjoyed listening. I hope everyone else did. I just want to let everyone know that we do these webinars once a week. We're actually taking the next couple weeks off. I'm going to be on the road, so I won't be able to curate any webinars. But I want to draw attention to one coming up the week of Halloween. It's on October 30th. Really cool presentation on direct mail. So if you're maybe getting ready for your end-of-year appeals, you're going to be sending out some direct mail, register from this webinar. These gals, Amy, Lizzie, and Lisa, they're from Giving Tree Associates. Really smart. They're going to show you some direct mail tips. So check that out if that interests you. There's some other webinars that are scheduled through the end of the year. You can see those there on that page and register for something that looks like it might interest you. So thank you all for hanging out for an hour. Susan, thanks for sharing all that knowledge. It was a lot of fun. I hope you'll come back again with us sometime.
You have but to ask me, Stephen. You know that.
Well, great. Just so everyone knows, I will be sending out the recording, so look for an email from me a little bit later this afternoon. But other than that, we will see you hopefully on the next webinar. So have a good week, have a good weekend, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye now.